Hello, everyone. Yeah, I can't think of a cold opening. Nah, I couldn't think of anything, so I'm just gonna start. Okay? Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to the Dungeon Minister. Okay. Our heroes are stuck on the top of a mountain with a heap of treasure and no idea how to get off that mountain. They're in a sort of crater, a bowl at the top of the mountain, its rugged sides extending down, and they can see below them the broken bridge which they crossed before it was broken. They crossed that bridge to come to this peak. They are now stranded because the bridge has crumbled. On the other side of the bridge, a rival party of adventurers who have made camp there. These adventurers were seeking the same treasure that our heroes did win in the end. They were seeking that same treasure, seeking the same skeletal warrior to fight, the skeletal warrior which our heroes defeated, but they were just a little behind him. Last we left the heroes, it was night, and they had lit a fire with the rags and detritus of dead bodies left in the Chimera's lair. They'd heaped that up, soaked it with oil, a flask of oil, and lit it on fire, in the hopes that those three warriors, this rival party of adventurers, would see their fire, understand there was someone up there, and wait. Because it's going to take a while to get back down the path down to the bridge, and along the way they may be attacked by Darkwings again. So they didn't want the three warriors, these adventurers, they didn't want them leaving while they traipsed their way back down the mountain. If they got down there, they could just shout across the gap to them. They'd be able to hear at that distance. But from where they are, there's no way they can hear them shouting. And they can't get any message to them. They did think of lighting arrows on fire and shooting them into the camp. I cautioned, though, two things. One, the arrows might not make it that far. Probably wouldn't, actually. And two, what if it hit one of them and killed them? Not what they want to do. So they've lit this fire and are waiting until dawn to see if they've been noticed, to see if the warriors stay in their camp and don't leave, to see if anything develops. Up on the mountain, they are very excited to see that the warriors are still there the next morning, right? And they can't tell what they're doing very well. They can kind of make it out. The elves can. Elves have better eyesight. I go with Tolkien on this one.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard!
The elves have better eyesight, and so they can kind of work out what the warriors are doing. The warriors are all human. They can't see the elves. They can't see the halfling. They can't see the thief at the top of the mountain. But they could see the light. It was just a point in the dark, right? But they could see it. It's real obvious, a fire in the night. They could see that as a point of light, but they can't make out any details, so they're just waiting to see what happens. Meanwhile, the elves can just tell that the warriors seem to be cooling their heels in camp. They're not packing up, they're not getting ready to leave, so they figure they must have seen it. They must have seen it. Great, great. Let's gather up the treasure and go down. Well, how? How long are these guys going to stay there, right? I mean, they've seen us, but are they going to stay for 3 days while we wind our way back down the mountain? Maybe 2 days to get down? Are they going to stay that long? I don't know. Okay. We go back to the list of potential ways to get off this mountain, right? And before they knew that the warriors were there, before they knew the warriors would stay, they had explored some options. One was the blink dog. Maybe they could go back and find that blink dog, lure it out again, and go back to where they had seen it before. Maybe that's its hunting ground. Maybe that's where it hangs out. Find the blink dog and somehow form a friendship with it, Scooby snacks, sure. Have a friendship with it and get it to help get them over the chasm. And that was a neat one because that was a random encounter I rolled up. So I hadn't planned it, but that's pretty cool as an idea. The other is my eldest had a notion that the cave of the Darkwings, they saw the cave on their way up the hill. They saw this cave up on the side of the mountain, and they figured it's probably where the Darkwings came from. And it was. My eldest figured the cave might have some route down, some passage deep into the mountain and out near the bottom, or some way across, right? Which I hadn't planned, but is a really cool idea. And so in the interim, I designed where that passage would be. And I didn't plot out the whole thing because it would be insanely long and twisting and winding. I just designed out where it would leave the Darkwing Cave and approximately how long it would take to get all the way out and approximately where it would come out. So I knew, the two ends of it, and then in the middle we could just, hand wave the exact shape of the passage. So I have all these two great ideas. I have the one that the dice provided. I have the one that my players provided. Then I have the relatively boring idea that I provided. Because honestly, compared to the random chaos of the dice and the creativity of my players, what I come up with is sort of, And my boring idea was that there was, among the treasures of the Chimera, buried among the bones and filth of his lair, there was a metal flask containing a potion of flying. 2 drafts. All right, that's the kind of boring solution because it gets them over there pretty fast, right? And it doesn't have anywhere near the amount of fun in playing it. And so, of course, that's the one that my players stumble upon. Yeah, they decide, you know what, we've got this time overnight while we're waiting for the dawn to see if they've seen our signal. During the night, they test the potion. And, you do that by doing a little tiny sip. And I say, when you take a little tiny sip, what happens is you start to feel light and you almost feel like you're going to rise off the ground. But then, of course, you've only taken a little sip, so you settle back. And they decide it is either a potion of levitation or a potion of flying. We're going to take a chance, because the DM probably put it in for this reason. We're going to take a chance that it's a potion of flying. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. They refill the bag of holding with all of the platinum and most of the gold. They then remember that they have backpacks and sacks, and they begin to fill those up as well. They can get the rest of the gold, and that's about it. They can get a little tiny bit of the electrum, right? I don't bother counting the encumbrance of the gems because they're so small. They're not going to take room. I'm not going to go there. So anyway, it all works out. They can carry quite a bit of the treasure, but not all of it. All right, what you going to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to drink the potion of flying. In the morning, we'll drink the potion of flying and load up with all the treasure, grab on to another member of the party, and fly across the chasm. Okay, sure. So the next morning, they have their meal, they memorize their spells, and I think it's the same spells. Fleetwood takes sleep and light and 2 webs, and Bob Johnny takes magic missile and charm person, web, and knock. So they're just going to try to carry it all in one big go. Great. Who's taking the potion? Well, who's got the best strength? Well, Bob Johnny's got pretty good strength. All that armor on, though, I don't know. Oh, well, it's a flying potion. He'll be fine. So Bob Johnny gets that, and Fleetwood will take the other. They have the best strength versus weight. Great. Okay. You suit up. You grab all the treasure. Okay. And you're going to also try to grab these sacks full of treasure and a person. All right. You take the potion. You feel infused with this lightness and this quickness. Suddenly, the sky feels like home to you. You feel like you could do anything and go anywhere. And you begin to rise off the ground, but not very far. There's so much in your arms. You've got all this treasure weighing you down. You're trying to hold on to another person. You can't do it. You can't do it. What do you mean we can't do it? Are we stuck here? You can't take off holding a person and all of this treasure. It's just too much. Okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? All right. Can we take off with just a person? Try it. Okay, they set all the treasure bags down. And okay, I'm just going to pick up a person. Yeah, you can. It's not easy. It's not easy, but you can. Are you going to hold them, or are they going to hold on to you? They should be on our backs. Grab onto our backs, because that's probably more secure, and we'll fly over. Now, this works. It does work. But let's remember that Touchberry is afraid of heights. A choice that the player made just a few sessions ago. He's afraid of heights. So, what do the three warriors see as they're, kicking around the camp, finishing up their breakfast maybe, having a little more coffee? What do they see? Coming out of the sky, two elves, one of them with a human over his shoulders, who's not too happy about it either, but the other with a halfling screaming his head off as he swoops out of the sky. Drop their coffee. And so we have a bit of fun playing that moment as they alight on the end of the ruined bridge and greet the three warriors. So, came to get some treasure, did ya? The three warriors have the decency to be a little bit abashed because they do know this was someone else's, flute. This was someone else's treasure, really. But they, what? All's fair in treasure hunting and war. So, yeah, we were trying to get the treasure. Looks like you got here first, huh? Did you find it? Doesn't look like you got anything. We're going to bring the treasure down here, and my friends here are going to fly it down. Incidentally, Fleetwood and Bob Johnny have taken off because they don't know how long this potion's going to last. They need to get back and forth as quickly as possible. They've taken off again. Our friends are bringing this down, and those are our horses, Oh, yeah, those are your horses. Now, the elves have flown up to the top of the mountain, and they have grabbed now the backpacks, the sacks, and the bag of holding to make the return trip, and distributed the weight, relatively evenly between them, and are flying back. They bring back all the treasure and plump it down, and Touchberry, gets him as big as he can get, and Foefire looks as dangerous as she can look. Trying to keep the warriors from doing anything stupid. Now, by then, they had managed some decent conversation and some less hostile relations, but still, here's a pile of cash in front of a bunch of people who came looking for cash, right? The elves check in. Is everything okay? All right. They go back for the third trip. Do they make it? Yes, they do, but not by a lot, because remember, they've got to go up there, and they've got to load up, right? They take the treasure that they've brought, they dump as much of it as they can into the saddlebags, so they've got some room, and they take the empty backpacks, they take the empty sacks back up to fill. They fill them up and bring them back down. In the end, they were able to get almost all the electrum, none of the silver, all the gold, all the platinum, and obviously all the jewels. All right. Now they're sitting with this pile of treasure down by the warriors, and they can't get it all into their backpacks, bag of holding, saddlebags. It won't all fit. The horses couldn't carry it if they did, right? So what are you going to do? Well, we could bury some of it here, but the warriors would know where we buried it, and they'd probably just dig it up after we left. Could we get them to carry some? This is a new idea for my party. They've never hired retainers before. There have been cases where retainers were provided for them, like the crew of the boat when they were going up and down the river, the soldiers who came with them to the keep on their second trip to the keep, I think it was, or maybe their third. So they've had retainers before with them, but it's never been it's never been their choice. It's never been something they've done. So now they're going to try to negotiate with these guys. You came here seeking treasure. You were willing to battle the skeleton, whatever else you found. You didn't have to. But we'll give you some treasure if you'll help us get the rest of it back home. What are you willing to offer us? And we go back, and we go forth, and we go back. The warriors are demanding this, and the party say, no, we'll pay that. What they land on is 300 gold each to help transport the extra treasure. Is that going to be worth it? And I let them do all the negotiations, and we do all that before bothering to find out, is it worth it? The extra will be carried in electrum. It's the least valuable. That's what they're going to give to the warriors to carry, because they don't trust them with the bigger stuff, right? Each warrior has saddlebags. Each set of saddlebags can carry 800 coins worth, right? So 3 times 8 is 24, right? Is 24? I'm bad at math. So 2,400 electrum pieces, which works out to 1,200 gold. And they're going to pay them 300 each, which is 900. They're only coming out 300 gold ahead on this relatively risky deal because they're bringing armed and fresh, adventurers who haven't gotten any wounds. They're bringing them along with them on a trip back up to Kilmarnock at least. Yee. How's this going to pan out? Well, at first we're fine. We're fine. Okay, that's what we'll do. They negotiate it all. They shake hands and the whole 9 yards. They load up the horses and off they go. I would like to point out that at this point they have a wand of enemy detection. What? They have a wand of enemy detection, and if Fleetwood had thought of it, he has a spell of ESP he could have memorized. He didn't, but he could have, and he should be able to tell what they're thinking. They could be able to tell if these are enemies. They don't think of any of that. Well, okay. Down the mountain they begin. They wind their way through the mountains, and they have reached that open place strewn with boulders where the paths converge. The one path that they're coming from, which goes to the now ruined skeletal warrior's bridge, and the other which goes to the relatively newly established pass through the mountains, right? They're coming there when I roll a wandering monster encounter. Oh, really? Oh, what kind of wandering monster are we talking about? Lycanthrope. There are so many werewolves in this campaign. This is perfect. I don't even bother thinking about any other lycanthrope. Were-tiger, were-bat, were-castle. There, wolf. There, castle. I don't even bother thinking about any other were-creatures. I just settle on werewolf. But it is daytime still, midday-ish. And so this werewolf won't be in lycanthrope form. It won't be in wolf form. It's in human form. And it's a woman. A woman dressed in traveling clothes, muddy cloak, rough boots, rough clothing, with a sword at her side, and a sharp, chiseled look in her face. Gray eyes, cold expression. She's coming along the path, the open pass to the Vale of the Blade. She's going in the same direction they are, however, as they come by. They see her, she must see them. I mean, there's 7 of them now, all on horse or mule back. So they see each other. She seems to slow her pace to let them get ahead. Now, my players reason, well, here's a woman traveling alone, here's 7 other people, armed, etc. Of course she's slowing down. She'd be a fool, Fine, we'll just go ahead. Keep an eye on her, but we'll just go ahead. So they do. They proceed past and begin this long zigzag down through the mountains. By the time they reach the bottom, it is approaching night. The dark is quickly setting in, and they decide to make camp. They're still a ways off from Silvius's tower, incidentally. They decide to make camp there. They haven't seen the woman for a while. They lost her somewhere back in the mountains. All right, they make camp. During the night, on Bob Johnny's watch, Bob Johnny and Claster, the party decides that there should be one from each group on watch at all times, as a precautionary measure for both parties. During that watch, as they sit at the fire, chatting about old adventures, sizing each other up, finding out that Claster used to be a member of the city guard of Kilmarnock, and he left the guard because he was frustrated that he couldn't pursue the lizard men out into the countryside. He was coming up toward the end of one of his tours, one of his assignments of duty, and he just retired from the guard and started adventuring. Again, more than you probably need to know about an NPC, but there it is. They're talking over the night when suddenly, out of the darkness, comes flying at Bob Johnny a huge, hairy face full of fangs, a werewolf. Slam right into him, and combat is on. He takes a wallop and a good amount of damage with claws. The thing leaps on him with claws, gouging into him. Down he goes. Claster is shocked, gets up, draws his weapon, and is about to attack the werewolf when another hairy body slams into him from the darkness. This one smaller. This is a wolf, not a werewolf, just a wolf. The werewolf woman has called help. 4 additional wolves on the attack. Into the camp they pour. Now, the other party members are waking up, obviously. The shouts and screams and hollers and crashing and all that wake them up. They lose initiative, though, and the other wolves attack. The werewolf biting into Bob Johnny. Bob Johnny is the first of the party who can respond. He and Claster both get the first response because they're already up and armed. Now, in response to a question someone posted about armor, yes, when on campaign, in a place where they expect they could be attacked, when they're not in a secure place. If they go to an inn, not so much. If they go to a castle, not so much. But when they're out in the open like this, they do sleep in armor. It's not comfortable, but it can keep you alive. So, they all are getting up and they are in their armor, they just have to get their weapons. So they will have an opportunity to respond, but not before the wolves attack some of those as they're just getting, up out of their bedroom. So there's some attacks there, a couple of them land, one misses, and the battle is on. In terms of initiative, I do it by group. The werewolves obviously have initiative because they came in as a surprise attack. Bob Johnny is the first to be able to respond with that axe, and he says, Brasingas! And swings it, and he gets a pretty hard hit. I think he deals like 11 points of damage. So with the fire and the axe and his strength bonus and all the various things added up, boom, big hit. The wolf howls in pain, but is not by any stretch of the imagination out of the battle. The other wolf on Claster. Claster attacks back and hits. It does a few points of damage. It's nothing huge. Again, it's chaos, right? All of the other party members are now up and they're getting their weapons and the fight is on. It's a bit desperate for Bob Johnny and for Fleetwood. Now, they've each had a chance to regain some hit points. Their night sleeping on the top of the mountain. But they're certainly nowhere near full. They're still in a relatively dicey situation. All of my party are. Fofire less so, Touchberry not quite as much, but no one's in great shape. So this battle has them on edge. They also don't know how many more wolves are coming, and for a while they don't even know how many wolves are here, right? There's one fire. It doesn't cast a huge light, right? The elves can see in the dark, and Touchberry, when he's got his cat's eye marble, and he does, he can see in the dark. But even that way, even with infravision, with the fire there, it spoils infravision when you're looking anywhere near it, right? So it's confusion. They don't know how many wolves there might be, and they are now so happy that they have the 3 warriors. Because the 3 warriors are, they're only 2nd and 4th level, 4th level thief and 2nd level fighters. But hey, that ain't nothing, and it helps. And they defeat the wolves. It takes them a while, actually probably longer than it ought to have, but they do eventually defeat the wolves. Down goes the werewolf, right? In a howl of pain, she shrieks out and falls. And then they watch. Who's she going to turn back into? When they see that it is the woman, they're like, yep, knew it. I knew it. They didn't, but, I knew it. I knew that was a werewolf. Okay, you knew it. Fine. All right. So they clear away the dead and try to go back to sleep. I always wonder how adventurers get back to sleep after that kind of thing, right? I mean, is it, I kill trolls, I kill troglodytes, I kill goblins, I kill gnolls. Yeah, what's a werewolf in the middle of the night to me? Back to sleep, I would think you'd be all like... Anyway, they do return to sleep as well as they can, and the next morning they wake up. This time, in memorizing spells, Fleetwood remembers ESP. Okay, so he takes his normal in terms of sleep and light, ESP this time, and Wizard Lock. He decides he might want to lock up some of this treasure along the way. He never ends up doing it because they start to trust the warriors. Having shared combat together does a lot to bond people, and Porto has been flirting with Fofire. All the NPCs flirt with Fofire. It's my wife. They have their breakfast, they pack up their camp, and they proceed. About mid-morning, they pass by Silvius's tower. Now, they don't need to stop here, right? They have plenty of food. They don't need shelter. There's no storm raging now. In fact, again, it's a little warmer than it had been. But they decide they want to visit. So they knock on the door at Fleetwood. And...
Enter if you are friends. If you're enemies, scram.
That's his standard opening. Anyway, out he pops.
Greetings, travelers.
And after some introductions, he offers to bring them snacks. Because he's a friendly wizard. Now, I did use an AI generator just for fun, really. And I put in friendly wizard offering snacks. And this is the image I got. Ugh. Anyhow, they have a chat with Silvius, and he is most interested in the fact that the skeletal warrior has been defeated. He's astonished and interested. He's also intrigued by the fact that there was a chimera at the top of that mountain. That really grabs him. They continue their journey. They again hug the mountains on their way because, remember, our party is still wanted by the Baron. They're still wanted in the Baron's lands, so they want to hug the mountains as far as possible to stay out of their territory. This does mean that being in the wilderness rather than on the roads, it does mean that there's a higher chance of an encounter with monsters. Countering this, the fact that there are now 7 of them is going to lower the chances of any of those monsters actually attacking, right? If I rolled up now the 4 orcs that encountered them on the way south, if I rolled those 4 orcs up now, they would think twice about attacking, right? 4 on 4, they might assume they could take it. You know, they've got their mounts are dire wolves rather than horses and a mule, right? They figured they could take them then. Now, those odds aren't looking so good. So I do end up rolling some encounters. And I have favored orcs because of the mountains here, the orc kingdom on the other side of the mountains, keeping in mind that the Vale of the Blade is close and the orcs don't like to be too close here. So if they're here, they're going to be on edge to start with. And I do roll up some orcs. And okay, how many orcs are there in the party? There are 5. Are they going to attack? Are they mounted? No. They're on foot. There's 5 of them. There's 7 adventurers. These orcs are close to the Valley of the Blade. Let's roll a morale for them. I'm going to give them a negative on this. I'm going to give them a penalty on this roll because of how edgy they would be here. Yeah, they're not attacking. They're not attacking. So they pass a party of orcs who just stay hidden. They were there to ambush and they just stay hidden. You know, these guys had seen the party coming because of 7 horsemen. You're going to see them. They laid in ambush and like, ooh, there's a lot of them. They look like tough guys. Are those saddlebags full? Yeah, look kind of full. Maybe we should... No, they're not doing it. Okay. On the party goes. I do roll up. There was a giant snake attack again and during one of their camps, and it was hardly a combat, right? It was hardly a combat. It's just whonk, gone, right? I'm going to have to start upping the monsters here because the giant snakes just aren't doing it. I mean, if it had bit, it would have been bad, but whonk, it's gone. And on they go. Once in Kilmarnock, they want to change this treasure into some way that they can carry it more easily, less conspicuously. And because they're going to take some of it, give it to the warriors, but a lot of it they still have to carry, and more than they're going to still have to carry more than they have capacity for, about 600 coins more. So what are we going to do? They find a gemologist, a large, substantial building in the square, which they'd seen before. They hadn't really thought too much of it. And they see over the door the signboard, Gideon Spilett, Gemologist. We've been reading The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne, so Gideon Spilett's a character. He's the reporter from that. So Gideon Spilett is the gemologist in Kilmarnock. Now, you may remember from Babblebrook that the gemologist there had to go and specially arrange enough money to buy the emerald from them. Or was it a ruby? Ruby or emerald? Yeah, I kept switching, didn't I? I kept switching back and forth. Anyway, he had to go and get money special to buy this thing because he's in Babblebrook, right? He deals in small stuff. Gideon Spilett, however, works in Kilmarnock, the seat of the Count, a city, not a huge city, but a city nonetheless, where merchants come and go all the time. He is used to dealing in large amounts of money. This is still a particularly large exchange for him. This is a particularly large deal for him, but nevertheless, he's used to this scale of operation, and so he's not too shocked when they begin emptying bags of coins out and asking to change them to gems. They also want to know the value of the gems that they already found. So this is going the opposite way. Instead of taking gems and turning them to cash, they're now taking cash and turning it to gems. And I am hoping to direct them in this way, because back up in Honeywood, there is this heap of coins. They have never changed anything to gems. Like, all the copper they found is still sitting there in copper coins. All of the silver they found is still laying around as silver. Well, it's not laying around. They have it in chests and boxes and whatnot, and with wizard lock spells cast all over them and things like that. But still, I'm trying to get them to think about these issues a little bit, because I don't run a hugely crunchy world. I don't make them buy new pillowcases, and I don't go into that level of deep, make them buy clothes when they wear out, stuff like that. But I do want them to think a little bit about the practicalities, just enough to keep it real, right? So I'm trying to direct them into using platinum and gems for the majority of their treasure storage. At any rate, Gideon Spilett arranges the deal. Now, one thing he does say is that there is a tax imposed by the Count on any of these exchanges, and he takes a fee himself. So, of their treasure total, 10% will be taken off. The players are fine with this. They get experience for all of the gold, even before, they get experience for the gross, not the net, right? And the experience points are really what they're concerned about. So, fine. They get enough coin to pay the warriors off. The warriors thank them and go their own way, with some longing looks from Porto and some no thanks from Fofire. The warriors go their own way. They will probably turn up again. I think they'll probably turn up again, right? Now, at this point, we have been playing for 2.5 hours, and that day the boys were just tired, and we'd had the big experience, right? Fighting the Chimera and all that had happened, and they were a little tired, right? So I decided, I'm not even going to roll for wandering monsters going through the forest on the way home. I'm not going to do that, because that's just going to drag this on. They really were done. They were done, Sometimes with kids, you just have to read the room. They're done. So we just pushed through, got them home, back to Honeywood. It's somewhere afternoon when they reach Honeywood, and they ride in through the gates. They nod to the folks they know. As they pass the copper kettle, they see, sitting out front, strumming away on a lute, Skytree, the halfling. She never made it to the Elven Woods. She started drinking at the copper kettle and kinda never quit. She's been singing for her supper ever since, so she's probably going to be a recurring NPC. They make their way to the monastic cells where they have been staying behind the church. They also decide at this point they're going to make a donation to the church in exchange for these rooms. The cleric, Parson Supple, has never said, you have to pay me for this, but he did gently suggest that donations to the church would be appropriate. So they make a donation of the church, a couple hundred gold pieces or something, I think. And they settle in for some good, well-deserved rest. As they do so, I let them know that totaling up all of the experience from monsters they fought all the way down and all the way back, and all of the treasure they've gotten, which is the major source of experience in the basic system, that their experience now puts Bob, Johnny, and Fleetwood just 1,000 and change away from the next level. It puts Touchberry a couple thousand away from his next level. Fofire has got a long way to go, because she was already up to 6th level anyway, and so because the experience needed doubles every level, she's got a long way to go. But we've got our 2 elves and our halfling pretty darn close to the next level. So close that if they had gone into the Darkwing caves, fought the Darkwings, and taken their treasure, they'd have hit it. Easy. Easy. So, all in all, we end on a peaceful note. No cliffhanger this time. No cliffhanger. Unless...